I'm a piece of garbage. For the 3 years Ezra was my boyfriend, when he genuinely loved me, I was a serial cheater. I stayed out all night and treated his heart like something to scrape off my shoe. But the second month after he dumped me, regret hit me like a freight train. I chased him all the way to London to beg for forgiveness, only to find him with his arm around another Omega, dismissing me with the same casual cruelty I'd once shown him. Panicked, I tried everything to make him stay, but Ezra was unmoved. That is, until I fell deep into my rut and threatened to go find an Omega to relieve the pressure. Get pregnant, he said, and I'll forgive you. I am pure scum. Ever since I was a kid, I've scoffed at things that came easily and coveted the moonlight I couldn't reach. But once I schemed my way into holding that moonlight, it tasted like chewing wax. I just wanted to shake off the sticky rice residue. So, by the second month of Ezra becoming my boyfriend, I was bored. I couldn't remember why I had pursued him so hard, why I'd gone to the edge of a cliff to learn all the extreme sports he liked, or why I'd bet my life drag racing against a rival just to win him over. Ezra was clearly just a deeply boring beta. He didn't have the sweet pheromones of an Omega, and his personality was stiff as a board. After I tricked him into moving back to the States with me, all he did was wait at home for me to get off work. He acted like a live-in housekeeper, cooking, cleaning, taking care of me. It was lifeless. Occasionally, he'd smell the cloying scent of others on me and come to me crying, asking which Omega I'd been with. I was sick of his sensitive paranoia, so I decided to make his suspicions come true. In the third month, I cheated. The first time I didn't come home. I slept with an Omega whose name I didn't even know. Fueled by pheromones, we went at it all night. That night, Ezra called me over 100 times. From midnight until noon the next day. I didn't answer a single one. When I finally went home, I didn't even bother to cover the hickeys. I walked right up to him, seeing his red-rimmed eyes, and patronized him. Babe, alphas have ruts. You're a beta, so you can't understand, but you have to be considerate. Ezra bit his lip until it bled and said something absurd. He understood. I assumed he was just shocked into submission, so I laughed it off. Relying on the fact that he couldn't leave me, I got worse. By the third year of our relationship, I couldn't count the number of times I cheated on my fingers and toes combined. After another night out with an Omega, my conscience pricked me. So I bought a crate of expensive cherries and brought them home. Ezra was very obedient this time. No crying, no screaming, no begging for an explanation. He just glanced faintly at the hickey on my collarbone and lowered his eyes. He stood up, his shadow looming over me, and stepped closer. He backed me into a corner until the burning cigarette in my mouth was almost touching his chin. Then he raised those peach blossom eyes, now completely void of emotion. He looked straight at me and said, "Let's break up, Julian." I bit down on the cigarette butt and smirked. Then, like always, I patted his head and coaxed him symbolically. "Don't throw a tantrum, babe. Look, I brought you something nice today. Your favorite." "I'm not throwing a tantrum." "What?" I said, "I'm serious about breaking up, Julian." The cigarette slipped from my lips, sparks scattering across my coat and onto the floor. But I only froze for 3 seconds before hooking my lips into a casual smile again. "Ezra, don't you get tired of saying that?" "Yeah, I am tired. That's why I'm leaving." Ezra's face darkened, showing not a trace of playful anger. "I've had enough of waiting for you every single night for years. I've had enough of your cheating, of you trampling on my heart over and over. So, starting today, we're done." He shoved the villa keys into my coat pocket, turned around, and dragged out a suitcase he'd already packed. His eyes were full of finality. I stood there, stiff, unable to process it. It wasn't until he was about to step out of the courtyard gate that I smashed the keys on the ground and stormed out, roaring a threat. "Ezra, if you dare walk out that damn door today, you can die out there for all I care. Don't you ever come back." Ezra stopped. He put down his luggage, turned around with a cold face, and walked back toward me. I let out a sigh of relief, immediately suppressing my anger and putting on a mocking grin. "Babe, if you wanted some compensation, just say so. Why put on such a show? I haven't returned this yet." Ignoring the smile frozen on my face, he slid the diamond ring off his ring finger, pressed it into my palm, and spoke coldly. "Goodbye forever, Julian." Ezra left. The entire villa suddenly felt cold, dead silent. I stood frozen in the courtyard for a full 30 minutes. Only when the sun went down did I storm into the wine cellar. I drank 2 bottles and smashed 50. Red and white liquid flowed everywhere. It soaked my coat and eroded my sanity. In 3 years, I never thought Ezra would initiate a breakup. Because he had no money. Because he was still deeply in love with the old me. Because he had cut ties with his family and wasted his potential. Relying on me for 3 whole years. I never thought there'd be a day where I got dumped. The reason I hadn't broken up with him all these years, even though I didn't love him, was his face. I was bored of him as a person, but I wasn't bored of that beautiful face yet. So after he left, I wallowed for a night. The next day, I crawled up and went to a club to find a hooker who looked like him. Omegas know how to please people. With just a few sweet words, he had me melting. Unlike Ezra, who was always cold-faced and doing chores, rarely giving me a smile, I should have kicked Ezra out sooner and brought a well-behaved substitute home. For the first week Ezra was gone, I stayed home with the substitute for 3 straight days, living in a haze, unaware of day or night. Finally, my assistant, Young, kicked my door in, fished me out of the mess, and forced me to change into a suit for work. He paid off the substitute. I didn't stop him. I let him go. After all, a fake might look like the real thing, but they are worlds apart. This Omega wasn't Ezra. Ezra wouldn't smile so cheaply, so fawningly. Regrettably, I hadn't even had time to see how he performed in bed before I let him go. He was, after all, the white moonlight I had chased for over 6 months to get. At first, I couldn't bear to touch him. Later, I was willing, but every time I saw his muscles, which were more defined than mine, I felt insecure. Insecurity killed my mood to continue. Eventually, I cheated. The soft, fragrant bodies nestling in my arms gave me a greater sense of conquest. Ezra became a decoration in the house. Over the years, he cried and made scenes, but I always remained calm, watching him go crazy like a detached spectator. I didn't feel sorry for him. I didn't rely on him for my ruts, didn't crave his pure love. I just treated him as a perfect housekeeper. So I believed that it wouldn't take long. I would completely forget this person. I messed up the new company project. When my dad saw my dark circles worse than a panda's, he almost had a stroke. He backhanded me across the face. I pushed my tongue against my cheek, rolled my eyes, and didn't bother arguing. I let him curse me out, calling me mud that can't be plastered to a wall, saying I ruined my life over a beta. Once I sent the old plague god away, I explained to my secretary, I don't love Ezra anymore. Seriously, trust me. Young rolled his eyes at me too. He came over, undid my messy Windsor knot, and tied a new one. His expression seemed to say, I believe you, my ass. I persisted, explaining that Ezra was just my housekeeper, and anyone would be unaccustomed to losing their personal servant. He nodded perfunctorily, telling me to say whatever I wanted. It wasn't until just before leaving work that he handed me a phone number. He warned softly, don't do something you'll regret for the rest of your life, Mr. Brooke. That string of digits was Ezra's new number. I stomped on it a few times, tore it to shreds, and viciously threw it into the trash can. Who does he think he is? I, Julian Brooke, have lived 20-something years and have never gone back for seconds. Especially not for someone who humiliated me and dumped me. That night after work, I went to a bar to get drunk, hugging an Omega just like always, living it up. But when I returned home in the early morning, the lifeless villa made me freeze in my tracks for a full 2 minutes. Everything in the house was a mess. The cherries I kicked over last month were still scattered in the corner, rotting and shriveled. Lying in the cold, giant bed in the middle of the night, I woke up in pain. Clutching my stomach, I grabbed my phone and subconsciously dialed the number I had memorized at a glance. I only realized what I'd done after the call connected. I had called Ezra. Hello? It was noisy on the other end. I didn't know where the hell he was, but the music was deafening. I bit my lip, hesitating on what to say. Just before he lost patience and hung up, I said, It's me. Ezra fell silent. The pain was making me delirious, so I gave in to the primitive urge in my brain and started playing the victim. Ezra, my stomach hurt so bad. Come see me. We're already broken up, Julian. Cold sweat dripped from my forehead. I gritted my teeth, wanting to continue feigning ignorance to make peace. When I heard a coquettish voice, Master Johnston, who are you talking to? Why didn't you tell us there was another Omega? Don't tell me we're about to be caught in bed. The phone slipped from my hand, and I froze. Having spent years in the club scene, how could I not recognize that sound? But I could barely believe my ears. I stood there in shock for a long time before angrily grabbing the phone and screaming, Ezra, you dare find an Omega behind my back? Do you have a death wish? I got up and smashed every fragile object in the room, creating a symphony of destruction. Ezra heard me going crazy, but he remained iron-hearted. He was calm. Julian, even if you died right now, it wouldn't have a dime to do with me. Soon, only the cold beep-beep sound remained. Before my consciousness faded, I collapsed onto a pile of glass shards, my stomach churning with cramps, along with my heart, which was being brutally crushed. When I opened my eyes the next day, I was in the hospital. Young was guarding the bedside, working on his laptop. I grabbed him by the collar, eyes bloodshot, demanding, Did Ezra bring me here? Where the hell is he? It wasn't Ezra. Young pushed up the glasses I had knocked askew, looking helpless. He's thousands of miles away in London. How could he bring you to the hospital? I went to your house because you didn't show up for work again. I didn't listen to the rest. I ripped the 4-needle out of my arm and rushed out of the hospital, straight to the tarmac. The private jet soon arrived in London. Fighting dizziness and nausea, I got off the plane and went to find him based on the address Young sent. A hidden, exclusive lounge. It was filled with all kinds of sickeningly sweet pheromones, making me physiologically uncomfortable and unsteady on my feet. But I didn't give up. Holding on to my last breath, I pushed open the private booths one by one, searching. I didn't believe Ezra cheated. He loved me so much. He loved me enough to endure for 3 years, forcing away every fling I had. How could he find a new lover in the 2nd month after breaking up?
Impossible. Absolutely impossible.
There seemed to be a string in my brain pulled tight, ready to snap at any moment. I stumbled to the innermost booth, exhaled a breath of stale air and kicked the door open. The moment I saw Ezra downing drinks with his arm around an Omega, the emotions I had suppressed for 2 whole months exploded completely. I rushed in and smashed every bottle in the booth.
Cracks, bang.
Complete mess. I scared off all the screaming Omegas in the room. Ezra watched me go crazy with a cold face, saying nothing. I rushed forward, grabbed him by the collar, on the verge of a breakdown, and hissed through gritted teeth, Did you sleep with them? Ezra raised an eyebrow and smiled lightly. So what if I did? Didn't I learn it from you? A taste of blood surged in my throat. I was so angry I wanted to vomit blood, but he was relentless. The day after we broke up, I found a group of Omegas and did everything in this booth that you did out there. Enough! Shut up! Hearing the end of it, I couldn't hold it back and vomited blood, staggering back until I tripped over the sofa. The moment before I passed out, even I didn't understand. It was just possessiveness at work. So why did my heart hurt to the point of suffocation? Ezra sent me to the hospital. When I opened my eyes and saw him, I felt emboldened again. I scrambled up and clutched his sleeve, begging for reconciliation. As long as you come back, I'll forgive everything you've done. We can live happily like in the beginning, okay? Ezra laughed out of anger. He grabbed my wrist and asked, Then what about all the times you cheated? Alphas and betas are different. You don't have money, and you don't have ruts. You don't understand the temptations we face every day. I knew it was shameless to say, but that's how it was in our circle. 9 out of 10 rich alphas cheat, and the remaining 1 is bankrupt. You can't blame me. Me coming back to chase you is already a huge charity. You should quit while you're ahead. I spoke with self-righteous confidence, but Ezra's face grew darker. He simply placed a hand, hot enough to burn, on the back of my neck, rubbing my gland, and looked up coldly. The day after we broke up, you brought an Omega who looked like me home and shacked up for 3 days and nights, right? I had no defense. Ezra smiled indifferently, his eyes icy. So, Julian, what right do you have to question me, or talk about getting back together? Ezra seemed to have changed. Back in London, his familiar turf, he took up extreme sports again, spending his days in bars and clubs, showing none of that docile, domestic demeanor from before. The current him was like a wild horse off the reins, unruly, rebellious, completely out of control. I was both afraid and inexplicably excited. Even my long-dead heart seemed to come alive. I finally had to admit Ezra was still Ezra, the same Ezra I would have died to get. I simply couldn't let him go. The day after I was discharged, ignoring Young's warnings, I stubbornly stayed in London to pester Ezra. He couldn't stop me, so he flew over to offer strategies to help me win him back quickly. But Ezra was far harder to chase than he was 3 years ago. He claimed once bitten, twice shy. He watched my attempts to make him stay while holding an omega in his arms, looking at me like I was a clown performing a show. It was exactly like how I used to test his limits. The boomerang I threw 3 years ago finally came back around. But I didn't give up. For a whole month, I lowered my dignity, using every tactic, soft and hard. He remained unmoved. Even when I threatened suicide, he just called me childish and walked away. Growing up, there was nothing I wanted that I couldn't get. Ezra put me in a situation of near despair. For 3 whole months. Until that night when my rut hit. Teetering on the edge of collapse, I smashed up the entire private booth and threatened to go out and find an omega for relief. Ezra, who had been cool for 3 months, immediately darkened his face. The air around him suddenly surged with oppressive pheromones unique to an S-class alpha, freezing me in place instantly. Without a word, he dragged me into the adjacent hotel and pinned me to the bed. The smile on his face was terrifying. "Julian, why is your wicked heart still beating? Thinking of finding an omega?" A pungent scent of orange blossom filled the air, almost overpowering my agarwood scent. My alpha instincts screamed at me to run, but I was slammed back down heavily. "Didn't you want my forgiveness, Julian?" The slap that hung in the air didn't fall, and I swallowed the curse words. On my lips, I stopped struggling, my Adam's apple bobbing as I probed. "You're willing to sleep with me? You forgive me? If it's you, even unpleasant alpha pheromones, I can tolerate them." Ezra gave an ambiguous laugh. "Of course I'm willing." But he leaned in, pinned me down and raised an eyebrow. "Get pregnant tonight and I'll forgive you. Deal?" I wanted to kill Ezra. If not for that face, I would have killed him even if it meant dying myself. That lunatic who pretended to be a beta housewife for 3 years. He bit the back of my neck over and over, injecting pheromones. Pheromones that simply couldn't dissolve in alpha blood. We dated for 3 whole years. This was the first time I met the real him. So malicious, crude, and despicable. A fellow alpha. When I woke up the next day, the goose-down duvet next to me was stone cold. If not for the throbbing pain at the back of my neck, I would have really wanted to treat last night as a nightmare. Wake up and pretend nothing happened. But in fact, I had to deeply memorize this humiliation to blackmail Ezra into coming back. It was the only way. But Ezra's reaction exceeded my expectations. He indeed stopped frequenting the clubs, but he also refused to acknowledge a relationship. When I struggled into his office, he just chuckled, leaned in, and teased. It was just a one-night stand. "Didn't you do that all the time, Julian?" I was nearly driven mad by his nonchalant attitude. I rushed forward and grabbed his collar tight. "What the FCK do you want? You bit me, you slept with me, you get pregnant." Ezra stopped smiling, his face devoid of any joking intent. "I told you, only if you carry a child can I take responsibility for you, Julian." The blood in my body froze instantly. Just as I clenched my fist to vent my anger, Ezra pulled out a property inheritance agreement and explained slowly. "To be with you, my old man demands that you birth a child to hand over to him." I exploded on the spot. "Inherit what property? I can f***ing afford to support you. Just come back to the States with me. In the past, I cut ties with my family and gave up my inheritance for you, and look how I ended up." Ezra leaned in, grinding against my swollen, aching gland, his eyes frosty. "This time, you have a baby and I'll support you. Consider it compensation for the 3 years you owe me. Okay?" Ezra knew I was in the wrong, knew I was stubborn, and knew I would do anything to get what I wanted. After the 3rd time I caught him on a blind date with a suitable omega, I flipped the table right there and compromised through gritted teeth. Things had come to this. I couldn't walk away empty-handed. I was willing to give up my company back home and stay in London for him temporarily. And by the time my dad got the news and flew over to kill me, I was genuinely pregnant. It is very difficult for an alpha to conceive. Ezra fed me a lot of pills, claiming they were supplements to help speed up the process. I trusted him, so I took them all. Then, when he pressed upon me late at night, I had less and less strength to resist. I could only let him play with me as he pleased, just like I had treated those omegas back then. Utterly cruel. My weakening body made me suspicious, but Ezra stubbornly reassured me there was no problem, saying it was just a side effect of pregnancy. I still trusted him, until that night when he bit the back of my neck, desperately injecting alpha pheromones into my gland. I finally realized, too late, those pheromones that should have repelled me were actually merging into my blood. Ezra, what the hell did you feed me? My eyes were splitting with rage. I rolled over and got up, strangling him with all my might, nearly going insane. But the force I exerted wasn't even a tenth of what it used to be. Ezra obviously noticed. He smiled, licking my blood from his lip, like teasing a trapped beast that had lost its claws. He touched the back of my neck and admitted the medicine wasn't a supplement. It was a banned drug that turns an alpha into an omega. Alphas are at risk when giving birth. I only did this because I was worried about your safety, Julian. Really. Smelling the faint scent of omega pheromones in the air, a wave of physiological nausea surged in my stomach. I stumbled out of bed and ran to the bathroom, vomiting until the world spun. Julian, didn't you like omegas so much? Ezra followed me, shirtless, bending down to hand me a glass of warm water, gently, patting my back to comfort me. Now that you've become your favorite thing, why are you disgusted? Don't throw up. FCKU. FCKU. I slapped the ceramic cup out of his hand, scrambled up, and tackled him to the floor. Ezra, do you really think I can't bring myself to kill you? I'll kill you right now. I'll FCK your... Kill me? How? Ezra lay pinned in the glass shards but still had the mind to stroke my legs straddling him, smiling teasingly. Planning to let me die on top of you? Or planning to take advantage of my rut and stab me to death when I lose my mind, leaving the child in your belly fatherless the moment it's born? The anger rushing to my head mixed with helplessness, nearly suffocating me. I finally lost all strength, lying in the bathroom panting frantically, letting him carry me into the bathtub to clean me up. Halfway through the bath, I raised my lifeless eyes and asked, "Are you taking revenge on the old me?" Ezra's dark eyes narrowed, his gaze becoming exploring and playful. How can this be considered revenge? I love you, just like you used to love me. The antidote. I'm begging you. Sorry, babe. You found out too late. His voice was very soft, but like a life-claiming ghost pronouncing a death sentence. Wanting to turn back into an alpha now?
Absolutely impossible.
Ezra put an inhibitor collar on me. Unterrible, uncuttable, leashed around my neck like a dog collar, under the pretext of protecting me from danger. In reality, it was an invisible chain that tied me completely to this villa. My pride wouldn't allow me to admit I was an omega, to suffer the strange looks from the outside world treating me like a pet. But the child in my belly needed alpha pheromones, forcing me to stay. I tried to seek help from Young, but he calmly stated that I had already cut ties with the Brooke family. My dad has many illegitimate alpha children. He doesn't lack one difficult son like me. Moreover, the current me is not an alpha. I am an omega who would be criticized for being pregnant out of wedlock, a disgrace to a wealthy family. To this day, I finally thoroughly understood Ezra's terror, realized exactly what kind of lunatic I had provoked. He was the true vengeful maniac who would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. I regretted it too late. Ezra's revenge was far from over. After locking me in the villa, he came home less often and later. He went on business trips frequently, coming back in the dead of night covered in the smell of alcohol and mixed pheromones, pressing onto me. Every time I smelled it, I would vomit until physiological tears streamed down my face. Then I'd crawl up, crying, asking him where the pheromones came from. Huh? Pheromones? Ezra suddenly laughed, raising an eyebrow in feigned surprise. Julian, are you suspecting me right now? I'm asking you where the damn omega scent came from. He backhanded the fist I swung at him, and with just a light press, pinned me to the bed. The despair of being absolutely suppressed in strength washed over me. I sobbed helplessly, and Ezra raised his hand to smooth out my furrowed brow, whispering comfort. What are you thinking, Julian? How could I be like the old you, cheating and sleeping with random omegas? Mentioning the past. My whole body twitched, and a chill ran down my spine. He continued to stroke me gently. You know, as an alpha, I have to make money to support the family. I have so many social engagements, I have to interact with omegas. Since you're unwilling to accompany me to those banquets to ward them off, you should be understanding, right? I knew what Ezra wanted. Those banquets were full of people I used to know. Yet he wanted me, pregnant and wearing an omega collar, to declare his sovereignty, turning me into a laughingstock. A month ago, I refused to go, dead or alive. If he dared mention it, I'd fight him to the death. I thought if I endured until the child was born, I could regain my freedom. But now, Ezra triggered my paranoia time and again, making my thoughts run wild, robbing me of sleep, pushing my mental state to the brink of collapse. I deeply understood the pain he felt back then. I had enough of the disgusting pheromones on him, and I could no longer suppress the child's need for its alpha father's scent to stay rational. So, in the second month of guarding the empty room alone, I finally couldn't help but grab his sleeve and agree to go out. By the 5th month, I was showing. I couldn't dress as dashingly as before. I could only deliberately pick ill-fitting clothes, trying my best to cover this shame. Ezra scoffed lightly. He squatted down to help me button up, looking up casually. Don't waste your energy, Julian. No matter how you hide it, the pheromones unique to pregnancy can't deceive others. Why bury your head in the sand? Be good. I just want to compensate for those 3 years, to have you openly admit our relationship to the world, Julian. I forced a helpless smile. Controlling me was becoming easier and easier for him. Sooner or later, he'd play me to death. At the Johnston Corporation's year-end gala, sure enough, many old acquaintances showed up. Ex-boyfriends, hookups, former business partners, and business partners I'd slept with. Amidst the toasts, Ezra deliberately led me in front of these people, introducing my new identity to those omegas one by one. The fiancé of the Johnston heir, the omega father of his child. With Ezra there, no one discussed that I had become an omega pregnant out of wedlock. They only cast gazes at me that were a mix of morbid curiosity and pity, except for my illegitimate half-brother, Xander, who saw me like this in the banquet hall and feasted on my misery, laughing openly. He even fearlessly wandered up to us, raising his hand toward my belly. Big brother, are you used to changing from alpha to omega? The belly is so big. Let me touch my little nephew. Since we cut ties, calling him nephew isn't appropriate, is it? Ezra, who had been silent, pinned down his wrist. Xander smiled disdainfully, about to curse, but a snap came from his wrist, broken. Xander grimaced in pain, begging for mercy with a twisted face, and fled in panic. Ezra smiled and let him go. But the gentle smile on his face made me shudder involuntarily, a chill running down my back. When it was Ezra's turn to speak on stage, he settled me in a corner, allowing me to move around freely. After what just happened, no one was foolish enough to provoke me. But I knew no one would stop mocking me in secret either, especially my countless exes. While I was sitting on pins and needles in the corner, a familiar omega, arm in arm with an alpha, leaned in front of me. Mr. Brooke, long time no see. The omega extended his hand toward me, revealing over a dozen old scars on his wrist, shocking to the eye. I only hesitated for 2 seconds before remembering he was the male college student I had tricked into bed and ruthlessly abandoned 3 years ago. Charlie. After learning I had a boyfriend and didn't truly love him, he went crazy blocking my path all day, threatening suicide, demanding I leave Ezra to be with him. He said he truly loved me and wanted to marry me. I laughed, asking how much his true love was worth, and told him to get lost. During that time, Young, who cleaned up countless messes for me, had such a headache over him that he wanted to resign. Finally, someone intervened and he stopped. Years later, I never thought I'd see him again in this setting. For a moment, I was at a loss. Fortunately, Charlie seemed to have moved on. Holding on to his current alpha, he exchanged a few casual pleasantries with me, until he was about to leave. My guilt flared up, and I subconsciously stood up to grab his sleeve, muttering an apology. I'm sorry I lied to you back then, hurting you like that. It was all my fault. Charlie lowered his eyes and said nothing, but his alpha sneered, releasing hostile pheromones as he glared at me, luring an innocent college student into bed and tossing him aside after sleeping with him. You really deserve to die, Julian. I swallowed hard. I looked up to say something, but froze when I saw the alpha's face. That alpha looked exactly like Charlie's uncle, Vincent Sue, who had gone abroad years ago. I heard he raised Charlie until he was 18, then left without a goodbye. Now appearing here, it was obvious who had made Charlie stop back then. Only this time, before I could speak, Ezra, who had been speaking eloquently on stage, suddenly rushed down and pulled me behind him aggressively. Since returning to London, Ezra had always appeared perfectly composed. I rarely saw him flustered. Tonight was the first time. After a few polite words, he pulled me into the car, his face darkening as he warned. Stay away from that man next time. No matter what happens, do not get close to him. Understand? I didn't think much of Vincent, so I nodded perfunctorily. After that gala, sure. Enough. Ezra didn't smell of messy omega pheromones anymore, and he came home more often. I gradually let go of my suspicions and curbed the unreasonable temper I used to have. I even started trying to accept my new identity as an omega and my pheromones. After all, compared to losing Ezra and suffering from anxiety at home, being an omega didn't mean much to me anymore. In the 9th month of the pregnancy, Ezra didn't go to the office much. He was willing to stay home and help me prepare for the birth, guarding sensitive and suspicious me, even if it was boring. I believed he truly loved me, and life would go on smoothly until the child was born. But accidents arrive sooner than tomorrow. Vincent somehow got my number and texted me a photo of Ezra with a girl on his arm, queuing for a roller coaster. Afraid I wouldn't believe it, he sent a surveillance video from the amusement park. In the video, Ezra and the girl of similar age were chatting and laughing all the way from the entrance, acting intimate. My hands and feet went cold as I glanced at the time in the upper right corner. For months ago, the night Ezra used a business trip as an excuse, leaving me waiting all night, calling him until dawn. My paranoia had reached its peak, bordering on a breakdown. But he didn't answer a single call. Maybe it was revenge, or maybe he also couldn't resist temptation and made a mistake. Now it seemed it was the latter. If it were revenge, he wouldn't need to hide the girl's existence. Projecting the old Ezra onto him, I suddenly found it hard to breathe. I could only hide in the bathroom behind his back and call Vincent, demanding to know who the girl in the video was. Julian getting anxious? He laughed casually on the other end, almost gleefully. She's my cousin, Chloe Sue, Ezra's childhood friend, the one I personally recommended to the Johnston family as a marriage partner. Once you give birth, the Johnston family will erase your existence and publicly acknowledge her as the child's mother and Ezra's fiancée. I knew Vincent was doing this for revenge, to give me no peace, to vent anger for Charlie back then. But when he offered to let me meet Chloe, I agreed without hesitation. Even Ezra's warning to stay away from him now became evidence that he was afraid I'd discover the truth. I couldn't stand it. My heart hurt to the point of suffocation, burned by anger. I was becoming more and more like the old Ezra, desperate to keep the other person, losing my dignity, becoming hysterical. Before leaving for the appointment that day, I interrupted Ezra, who was working from home, and asked with feigned lightness, like a joke, "Do you really still love me? Ezra, have you just gotten used to my existence, treating me like an old decoration, a handy tool that you can't bear to throw away, just like the old me?" He thought my paranoia was acting up again and answered perfunctorily without lifting his head. "Stop overthinking. Babe, how could I not love you? Of course I love you." This might be the last time I ask him. But he still didn't give a serious answer. Vincent really brought Chloe to see me. She looked like a perfect match for Ezra. A talented man and a beautiful woman. I just felt annoyed. I simply asked, "Do you know I've been with Ezra for 4 years, and the child in my belly is his?" Chloe nodded lightly, saying Ezra's parents didn't agree with our relationship. She laughed, then mocked. "A child born from an alpha? Who knows if it will be deformed? They want Ezra to marry me and have children. As for you, it's a wealthy family, we don't mind him playing around outside, sleeping with whoever. Help me leave, and I'll step aside for you." I glanced at Vincent not far away and lowered my voice. "He's famous in the medical field. He must have the drug to turn me back into an alpha, right? As long as you give me the drug and help me leave, I'll take the child and go, never to disturb you again." Chloe paused, raising an eyebrow suspiciously. Why should I believe you? Because your pheromones tell me you actually mind Ezra cheating very much. Omegas are always sensitive to the pheromones of their own kind. From the first moment I saw her, I sensed hatred in her scent. She wasn't as indifferent as she appeared. Chloe was silent for a long time. Finally, she hooked her lips into a smile and said, "Okay, I agree to help you leave Ezra. On the night I left, I put sleeping pills in Ezra's food and watched him eat it. Once he fell asleep, I packed my things and struggled to walk out. Before leaving, I whispered I'm sorry to Ezra. Sorry that those 3 years I failed him were so terrible. To make up for the past, I had been trying hard to change, trying to become what he liked. But I could absolutely never achieve his level of endurance, losing my bottom line." Chloe's meeting point was at the pier. She brought a box of artificial pheromones to handle the pregnancy, which also contained the antidote to turn me back. After thanking her, I boarded the boat. But before I could even sit steady holding the medicine, a group of bodyguards in black with knives suddenly rushed out, blocking all escape routes. People on the boat started screaming, running around trying to escape, but it was futile. They were controlled in place. Once the clamoring crowd quieted down, Vincent appeared, followed by a terrified Chloe. He toyed with a handgun, sneering at me. "Idiot! Did you really think I wouldn't discover your plot and let you get away so easily? I originally intended to trick you into giving birth before killing you. But since you insist on courting death and going to hell early, then die now." Vincent wasted no more words. He quickly cocked the gun, gripped it tight, aimed at my head, and pulled the trigger. Julian. Blood suddenly exploded before my eyes. Warm liquid trickled down my forehead, blurring my vision and plunging me into an icy abyss. That night, Vincent was arrested for attempted murder and possession of a firearm. But the person who went into the ICU wasn't me. At the critical moment, Ezra rushed over and shielded me. That bullet missed his heart by only a millimeter. He was in critical condition. He lied to me. He hadn't slept at all. He even knew about my plan to escape. Crying as I sent him onto the ambulance, he gripped my hand tightly, questioning weakly, "Now do you believe I really love you? Don't abandon me again, Julian." Later, Chloe told me the arranged marriage they talked about was fake, and the video was just an antique from 7 years ago. She had liked Ezra since junior high but lost to me in college. She wasn't resigned to it, so she tricked Vincent, wanting to send me away early. She wanted to turn the fake marriage drama into reality. My emotions were too unstable that night, and the baby was born prematurely. Fortunately, in the 3rd week of the baby staying in the incubator, Ezra woke up. I held him and cried for a long time, said many sorries, and promised never to leave him again. He smiled palely and said okay. He apologized to me too, saying he deliberately provoked me before, deliberately made me feel guilty. But after experiencing life and death, all past grievances seemed like fleeting clouds. We decided to live well in the future, live every day well, and never betray each other. I thought we would be happy forever this time. Until that day, I looked through the hospital window and saw Vincent, who should have been in prison. I heard him laughing and teasing. "You dead psycho, using your life to leash that piece of trash. Was it necessary? I really don't get what's worth it." Ezra glanced at him, toying with the safety charm I had prayed for, and smiled casually. "Of course it's worth it." Epilogue. Ezra's perspective. I knew Julian earlier than he imagined. Before he took a liking to my face and passionately pursued me, I had already set my sights on him. He was too dazzling, elegant, and luxurious, too arrogant, like a Maine Coon cat forever standing in the light looking down on all living things. I hated that kind of thing. So during that time, I thought of 100 ways to break his pride, lock him up, and turn him into a plaything. Just like those disobedient pets that scratch people. Lock them up and torture them for a few meals and they'll be fine. Nothing can't be tamed by torture. But all these disgusting, twisted thoughts stopped the day he turned back and smiled at me. That day I suddenly understood. I didn't hate the light. I just hated that the light never shone on, never favored me. Julian was the first beam of light willing to stop for me. I am an illegitimate child. I grew up in dark corners, hating people and things that were born noble and radiant. Like my older brother, he always postured in front of me, showing off the love and wealth he possessed. He loved to take out lots of Lego car models, deliberately asking if I wanted them, then kicking the toys and me into the ditch. Later, I kicked him into the ditch too. But he was too fat, too spoiled, couldn't climb up, and died in the ditch. After that, all the car models in the house belonged to me. So, I deeply understood a principle. The fastest way to get something is to use dirty means. As for what you can't get, just destroy it. Destroy it, and others will be like me, unable to get it either. Julian launched a passionate pursuit of me. He displayed sincere love without reservation. He was different from everyone else who liked me. For the first time, I had the thought of walking out of the gloom. So I restrained my pheromones, packaged myself as the weak type he liked. Every smile and frown was carefully designed. He loved me almost inextricably, but he betrayed me. At the moment when I most wanted to have a normal relationship with him, he betrayed me. From the moment he chose to betray me, a repentance-gilded cage tailored for him would unknowingly envelope him, trapping him until death. Vincent is my childhood friend, whom I called back from abroad. When he learned that the cub he raised by hand was treated like that, he once wanted to kill Julian. I stopped him and made a deal with him. I promised him I would tame the promiscuous alpha into a submissive omega housewife. Julian had to pay the price for his 3 years of betrayal. Chloe was an actor I hired to test Julian. I wanted him to panic when he was most vulnerable and helpless, to test if he had truly been tamed. The result? He really f***ing tried to run. Chloe was even smarter than she looked, thinking that by sending Julian away, she could curry favor with my parents and actually take the position. But she didn't know me, didn't know that the entire Johnston family was already in my pocket. If necessary, I could even commit patricide. So whether my lover stays or goes, only I have the final say. Since the child couldn't restrain him, and Julian wanted to run, I let him run. I made him fall into lifelong repentance and self-blame, forever grateful to me. Whether that is love or not doesn't matter anymore. I just want him. Vincent asked me if doing this was really worth it. I said it was worth it, because even if Julian is a piece of trash, I am even trashier than him. I will love him forever.